Ladies and gentlemen, from Benny Hill to now maybe something that's a little bit less running, we welcome you back to the PCS for the next matchup. Hopefully DCG can impress you. As we remind you that sponsored by the CDBC Bank is the PCS for 2022. Thank you to Riot Games, Carry Life, and Garena for the operation of the full production of the league as well. Now, you and I have a bit of chatting to do here because I feel like last game pushed us a bit off kilter there, Nightstar. Them 9 get their first game win of the year. That's our biggest takeaway. Now we have to look DCG and Beyond Gaming because two of our more top-centered teams are looking for their 6th win in the league, and we've got pros and cons for both listed out.
Yeah, currently tied for 3rd at 5-2, both of these orgs. DCG started out 0-2, have really bounced back and started to exhibit what makes this team run, and that's quirky drafts, being able to throw in the Seraphine into the bottom lane, bring out that Swain, which while it didn't start out very well, is still one of those more quirky picks that we haven't seen from the rest of the PCS. And on the flip side for BYG, it's been really all about these team fights. They've had relatively strong laning, but Minji, Elite Kai, not exactly going to run you down in the lane phase, and it's more about performing during the team fights, and they've really stood tall in those moments.
I feel like there's a lot to talk about, from that individual identity, right? Where those big moments where they stand tall, Nightstar, are great, but it can be a swing and a miss, right? It's very fair to say that swing and a miss is when we kind of go well, maybe they're not a top 3 team, right?
Yeah. Still, BYG maybe not the cleanest macro squad in our league, and they've been somewhat like PSG Light, which is ironic because they were able to get the win over PSG.
True.
But that was also a game that just came down to one team fight. It wasn't really either of these teams really macroing the other. As we get to see DCG, the lineup here hasn't really changed much, and I think Leaky is going to play a pivotal role in this game as we get to see Megabank Beyond Gaming's roster. No changes either. Leaky is going to be the starter up in the top side, and overall their team fights have been stronger with Leaky. Beyond has shown stronger lane phases, but when it came to team fighting, he wasn't as proficient as you might see from a lot of our other top laners in the PCS.
Yeah, I mean, the laning phase criticized by you, I know from Likai's point, but if we're talking about a PSG Light, if we're talking about a team that, wants to bring it all together, we know that team fighting being at the core means that Likai is the better fit at the time being. I also want to point out that some of the other strong elements of this team come from the jungle, and it's perfect that we're lining Hana up with Husha, especially since we have similar champion pools that, to be fair, then start petering off with some of the unique picks we've seen already.
Yeah, Hana was our first Belvith player, and not overly impressed by Belvith.
But it won Nightstar, that's what matters.
Yes, it is undefeated. So, take it what it is. But on the other side, Husha, he's really been performing. This is a player we really wanted to see step up, went to Worlds, sort of flopped from expectations, and coming into this year with, arguably weaker lanes in the solo department, he has been, more responsible for making sure these lanes are able to stabilize.
I'm going to be honest with you, Hana versus Husha is where I start, but I feel like looking at mid here in the draft is where I'm going to round up, because Minji and Nesty, different directions there again. I think it's important to note that Nesty has been one of the weirder drafters in the past. He's been playing Swain and pretty normal things. Gragas is where he peters off there. But Minji as well, we know his champion pool, things like the Yone, things like the Zoe too. They both have really unique identities, and already we've seen a couple of targeted bans towards Nesty, which leaves the Zeri open.
Zeri?
Yeah.
Okay, Zeri left available. This is the premier champion on this patch, and also the previous patch. but this champion has just been absolutely bonkers. To let it go through, you really have to set up a very bot-focused draft, either with setting up a vertical jungle coming in from BYG, or just setting up perhaps the Lucian Nami lane to try and pub stomp it into the ground.
Okay.
And it has to be some sort of very active jungler on R3 here to really supplement these two picks.
I mean, Husha, the Wukong is available still. Viego there, Nightstar. There's a lot of picks that can, as you say, supplement this bottom lane. But we know that Lucian Nami has fallen off a little bit. A lot of people have moved away from this completely. So trying to set an identity towards the bottom lane, kind of what we talked about with the team fighting style of Beyond Gaming, the PSG lightness coming through. But getting through that laning phase is so crucial, right?
Mm-hmm. And I was going to suggest the Poppy would have been a great fit for this lane dominant style, but it actually gets taken away by the side of DCG. Of course, Poppy, if this champion gets on top of the Zeri can't get out of dodge. Same goes for the Lucian, right? If Poppy gets on top of Lucian, you can't use that dash, so you are essentially just rooted in place. It's going to be a bit of a difficult time for BYG. How do they answer back? Maybe they go for something like a Trundle to try and apply early pressure. Also throws down a pillar to sometimes troll yourself, I suppose. But the Wukong, of course, the stronger team fight jungler over the Trundle. It's actually this is
into Poppy.
Interesting. Yeah, it's into Poppy, but you can also see why they go for this pick. It is just to isolate that Zeri in these team fights. However, they've already taken away the Gallia themselves, so they don't have that full isolation play per se available to them in the draft phase. So I'm very interested. Maybe they go for a Lissandra here in the second phase, just to say, hey, we just want to burst out the Zeri at all costs.
I like the Lissandra call out here, Nightstar. It feels like for Minji, it would be the perfect little, addition on top of the Camille that you were talking about. I'll also say that for someone that has in the past liked things like the Ari, maybe we could see that play as well. Lissandra has already been picked up for him, though. Further to the point, Talia as well with a bit of map movement. Silas, we caught the Zoe out, the Yone, the Seraphine, which took a ban from DCG first up, and even the Silas too, right? So they are concerned about his champion pool, and we have to see if DCG want to opt into minimalizing it further, as no, they double jungle instead against Husha.
Yeah, taking away some of those early junglers, right? If you go to a Viego, he doesn't exactly pack that much of a punch during the early game that you... Okay,
I probably won't be, right? Let's be real. Who plays Fiddlesticks? I love this champion. I made this champion in China. How dare you hover that champion and walk away? Since the remake, I've been so depressed over it. And so instead of getting the true six-pack, we get the fake one in Viego.
We get Viego here, and DCG actually currently hovering this Mordekaiser. Of course, they already know what the top lane matchup is going to be, and Mordekaiser does all right, and certainly the key point is just what he brings to the table with that ultimate. If anyone overextends, or if the Camille jumps onto his AD carry, he can just abduct the Camille, bring her into the Shadow Realm, free up the Zeri as a result. This is an interesting lock-in here, because now if you look up and down DCG's roster, they're actually overloaded with magic damage with the Yuumi, with the Mordekaiser, with the Talia now, and also the Zeri. She packs a decent chunk of magic damage out of her own kit. So if they just... I'm not sure how you round out this draft here for the side of BYG. I still like the Lissandra. Yeah, again, mentioned before, it's all about killing the Zeri. If we can somehow kill the Zeri, we'll figure things out afterwards.
Yeah, so from there you're like, okay, we adjust, right? And I'm glad you pulled out that Lissandra. Perfect coordination here, but Beyond Gaming have to really get it underway. Bot in a strong 2v2 has to find its lead here, and Nightstar, I feel like DCG coming back to what we were talking about. It is a bit like protect the president composition. You might have a strong mid jungle 2v2, but later on, get everyone off Chris Carter and make sure that this Zeri stands free.
Yeah, this is all about this bot lane, right?
Yeah.
You have Lissandra, Viego, Camille, all designed to try and kill this Zeri. And on the flip side, you've got Talia, you've got Poppy, you've got Yumi, you've got Mordekaiser. All of these champions are like, if you jump onto our Zeri, we are all geared to get you off of our Zeri. So this is all about this bot lane matchup. So this level 1 is going to be key in seeing which team is able to set up a level 1 to set up vertical jungling to protect that bottom lane.
And you get yourself in a favorable position. Husha, a lot to ask here, but I'll be talking to you more about the solo lanes here with how volatile they can be as well. I feel like with bot out of the picture as well, there's a lot of volatility across the map here, Nightstar. So a much more exciting draft here. For DCG, going up against BYG, remember, both these teams are at 5 wins. And if you're tuning into the PCS for the first time, you're not a consistent viewer. Right now, the top teams are PSG, J-Team. Under that, its own little bubble of Beyond Gaming and DCG. CDBC Flying Oyster taking a bit of a surprising loss yesterday against BYG and even against DCG. So we're setting out these barriers in the league where right now, I mean, Deep Cross or Beyond have a chance to push up and get into that top 3, near that upper echelon.
Yep.
As we're past the halfway point of the split.
And if J-Team, they find themselves slipping up, one of these teams will then tie J-Team for second, as they will be playing CFO later on in the day. Will be no level 1s really set up from either of these squad. They get a ward down onto that Raptor camp, but besides that, not a ton of pressure to try and force out the vertical jungling. So this is something we don't see a lot in PCS that the other leagues do set up for. We see a lot more level 1 setups to try and assert vertical jungling to protect bot lane skirmishing when you have these early game focused dual lanes like a Lucianami or something like a Kalista Renata.
Yeah, I feel like Casa, especially from V5, a good example of that. A lot of aggressive junglers in the LPL, and I've been casting them and thinking like, wow, this setup is genius. Like, and it doesn't just come from walking in the enemy jungle. It's about positioning. It's about the deep warding that comes out in the first minute too. So, as you can see, speaking of that warding, there are some defensive wards from DCG to stop any of that vertical jungling you're talking about. Husha is pathing up towards top side, so it looks like it won't matter, but DCG have set out a bit of a line with top, with bot, a ward each to make sure that Beyond Gaming don't try to get a little bit frisky. As level 2's hit first here by Chris Carter and Woody, but it is a Yumi Renata. So as they push out, Wako and Kino will just bide their time and the lane going as steady as you'd expect.
Yeah, and Wako Kino with the Lucian Nami. We're going to have to try and get the maximum here. Lee Kai taking a rough trade. Does get a little bit of the heal coming in, which will help soften that trade. But for the most part, Leaky is going to have the advantage. This has been a player that has performed in lane, but an early gank from Husha could change that.
Yeah, coming up, and Husha with great timing. I mean, Leaky will have the shield now at level 3, but I don't think he can kill Lakai before, but never say never as Lakai gets low. A flash still available from this board. Flash Q! The Obsidian Mace comes down, but it's not enough damage. I respect the guts out of Leaky, but Beyond Gaming is still the ones who get first blood.
And the wave is in a really, really nice spot here for Lee Kai. Is going to have the teleport to get back into lane. Of course, Leaky will also be able to teleport back, but with the wave spot where it is, he's just going to hold on to it and just walk his way back. And Lee Kai out to an okay start here, but Minji.
Okay, well, the glacial path will be taken and safely away. Good timing from Hana, and yeah, even better time from Minji.
Yeah, we'll be able to stay safe. Lee Kai coming back with the Cull to try and just continue scaling up. He has the first strike as well. This is really all geared towards bursting out this Zeri pick, you know, because he even goes first strike, which, yes, he's into a melee matchup. He will find some usefulness out of this Keystone, But it's really all about assassinating the squishy targets in the backline, getting that really fast burst combination in tandem with the first strike. We see it on Assassins very often, just to further snowball through itemization. And Leekai's going to try and do just that.
I mean, he's in a good position, right, with the wave pushing up. Even though DCG have been pretty adamant on setting up some of this early game vision in the river, for now, Lakai knows that, well, a jungler was spotted on the bot side moments ago. Hana is still here. And on that Tri-Brush ward, that'll help give a little bit more information to Beyond Gaming solo laners. And we didn't get a chat about the solo lanes too much here, apart from your small mention of first strike there for Lakai. Maybe I don't have time. Going to be on a ward here. Maybe I do have time. Actually, I take it back. Yeah. Nightstar, you know, Minji and Lakai, I feel like there have been really good elements of both, but also big failings as well. I think Clement and I last time were talking a lot, especially about Minji and his champion pool being very telegraphed, very small in comparison to other mid laners in the league.
Yeah, that was certainly the storyline when he got added into the roster, but so far, I mean, he's played 6 different champions during the split, or this particular split so far. So he's showcased a little bit more diversity in his pool, and it's covered, you know, a breadth of champions. The Seraphine, the Silas, of course we know he plays that, but also the Lissandra, Talia, Yone, as we get to see a dragon fight now.
Yeah, we do. I mean, he is level 6, so I was talking about Minji. Let's see if he performs. The flash away from Hana means no steal. Beyond Gaming with the first dragon, the first kill. The first gold lead as Kino gets sent out. A good seismic shot from Nesty, but as the cleanse comes through, Beyond Gaming has more members, and Hana's just locked in place. Hushin out with another kill. This Viego has only just begun.
And the mistake here is DCG, they have this early game focused jungler in the Poppy, and they just haven't played to it. They didn't try go for an early gank down in that bottom lane, which we saw Burry do when he took the pick just earlier today. And now, like, once you're set behind on this pick, yes, you provide some utility later on, but Viego is also just kind of a better fighter in some of these later game fights. And now, like, we get to see the replay. Hana comes back in after flashing out, but because he already burned the flash, he has no way out once they actually turn onto him, and BYG recognize that and make the turn towards that Poppy.
And let's be real, Lucian Nami as well, even with Kino getting bursted out, Minji's going to turn a corner. Hello, Nesty. And just gets a small trade to stop his back in process. But, you know, the damage coming through from Wako feels pretty good. And I will say, the damage from Husha is now going to be so much more desirable. A 2-0 starting here on this Viego, has a pickaxe already. He influenced top lane. He was able to get Leaky's flash down, which is about a minute from coming back up, even less. And as Leaky hits level 6, it's a good time to transition here because he is still pushing out. But I truly wonder where Hoosh is going to go next here, Nightstar, because he has a world at his feet with a couple of summoners being down across the board.
Yeah, and we also need to see what is Nesty going to do with this Talia pick, right? Because this is a pick that we expect to aggressively roam, try and hit these side lanes. But where is he going to head to? The last time we saw this pick, he used it very well in these dragon fights in order to cut people off and isolate the dragon pit. But we actually didn't see him roam using this pick. And I think if he doesn't do that this game, he's definitely mishandling the Talia as a champion. Because he is behind. And against Lissandra, like, Lissandra's just going to be more impactful in straight up team fights.
I just don't think we've ever really used, you know, Nesty and map pressure in many sentences, right? Like, it's Spring especially, I remember the Bard mid with Smite was just crazy, but Nesty was very proactive. And I feel like that's his biggest trait, is you talked about. DCG's early game, and partly because of him, has been their strength throughout the whole year.
And DCG have relied on Nesty to be the main initiator more often than not. Hana, while really good at secondary engage, Woody's really good at secondary engage, but when you put the onus onto them to be the ones to start the fight, it's really hit or miss. So for the most part, Nesty's been the one tasked with starting out the fights and setting up the situation perfectly for the rest of his team to follow up. Hana will be starting out the Rift Herald, but it does get reset. This is not the situation that DCG want to find themselves in.
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering how BYG start this off. However, DCG do have topside priority. We've been looking at Leaky time and time again. He's up 20 CS here on Lakai with his flash now available as well. Looks even easier to succeed in the lane. So Herald is started late, but then scoffed at, with both teams still staring at it and trying to set up a position. I mean, this is a tense battle considering Nesty has his ult too as well, Nightstar. There's a lot of tools to take track of. Now
look at these bot lanes though. It is going to be BYG being a little bit closer to the fight with their bot lane duo. And that's going to allow them to get first dibs, but priority is for the side of DCG top side.
Remember that Leaky has his ulti. You talked about this in draft. He can take Husha out of the fight as a steal to come through. Another disengage shot, but it doesn't hit the jungler. Hana against the own Weaver's wall is beautiful. They get the Herald, they deny the steal, and Beyond Gaming's early game has now been readily matched.
Beyond Gaming, they've really tunneled in on trying to secure these early Heralds, and I'm not sure if that's the first one they've lost or if they've lost one before, but man, this is a great use of the Poppy ultimate to take out the Lissandra, which is one of the main engages for this composition, and then they're able to easily turn on to Husha, who is pinned to the Talia wall again. Like Nessie, he plays very well around the Talia wall when it comes to these objective fights. It's just that he doesn't use it to its maximum when it comes to attacking the side lanes, which is what we want to see more so out of this game.
At least we get one coming out, and it is a success. Yes. So you're right. Let's see how he positions it for the second and third. It's kind of like Twisted Fate. The first couple of ultimates are crucial, and let's be real. We've seen Talia gameplay today in the first series from Impunity that didn't really matter much. No Weaver's Wall, no roaming coming out of the side lane, but I will say, we also saw in the first game, not series, as the dive comes through in the top side. Ignore that for now. Nesty's moving to the side lane without the Weaver's Wall, but Lakai. But the thing is, he has flash available. The Hextech ultimatum there. Can he get out? He's stunned up. He flashes over the wall. And here's the reinforcements. The re-engage gives a reset as Leaky has Minji in the Death Realm. Beyond Gaming will lose one as Husha takes out another. They're actually trading this back as turning back into Viego. Leaky now without anything available. Husha has his boy in Kino as well. Another kill to the Viego. And Lakai played that so beautifully.
And this is why they've had Leakai in the roster while he is still at a really large lane deficit. It's still 20 CS down. When he comes to these fights, this is really, really clean. He starts things up with the ultimatum because of the fact that there is that work ground thrown down. And then he immediately bails out, plays the range, comes back in with the hook shot, and then of course the turn coming in, getting help from Nami, bails them out even further, and it's just a massive win for BYG. One of the drawbacks, of course, running the Yuumi is if you're kind of stuck attached to whoever you decide to attach to, and the Zeri being bot lane, it's going to take a while to roam all the way topside.
Oh yeah, it really is. I think, you know, the Zeri already starting to move is a good sign of things to come, though. And you can even see Woody is starting to group up with Nesty here, the mid laner of DCG. Now, we have to take stock a little bit because second Dragon's up, and it feels like this is going to be an action-based game, Nightstar. Husha is 4-1 with Blade of the Ruin King first. So, first item complete with a Gale Force on Wako. Also, Lakai has his Divine Sundera. Beyond Gaming just have outright more items, so for DCG, as Chris Carter looks for a bit of a steal here, they will have to give up this Dragon in favor of dropping the Herald in the mid lane.
It's a massive power spike to them, and it's actually 320 gold going into the hands of the Poppy, so none of it actually going into the pockets of this Talia pick, and all going into this Poppy, who is 2-1, so hasn't had the greatest game. And Cascada down 2 levels, and he's got a lot to deal with.
Oh yeah, instant cleanse, flash away from the tidal wave, Beyond moving around the map, and it's nice to see. I mean, Lissandra versus Talia, always a lot of fun when you see the Lissandra being just as proactive as Nesty's champion.
And we talked about this composition coming in from BYG. It's about just one tapping the Zeri. And they literally sent all their forces down to try and get that kill. It doesn't come through, unfortunately, for BYG, but it just shows you how much of the focus is onto this champion who is all their AD damage as well. And even then, it's still a good mix of magic damage packed into the kit. So once it gets later in the game, once these Hex Streakers start coming through, it's going to be harder and harder for DCG to find these kills if Cascada gets zoned off of these fights.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, Zeri's not the longest range AD carry. We know that Ultra Shock Laser through objectives is one of the big play patterns, but still in the team fight, as you said, the AD not being there is going to be pretty crucial. One track mining from TCG, while on the other side, Beyond Gaming with the early game gold lead, however slight. We talked a lot about angles, about how they could play their fights as well, and you know, there's a lot of disrupt tools for BYG, but I think the problem is here, Nightstar, they've already picked up a couple of objectives. They do have firm control, and with the game not being even, I mean, Leaky's role might be a little bit harder, as even Lakai now in the 1v1 doing a bit better than he was at the start of the game.
Yeah, and remember, he does have first strike, so even down, though he's down 30 CS, he's able to make up for some of it with these shorter trades, catch about 2 CS worth of gold on each trade. So depending on how many trades he has been able to find, maybe the gold gap isn't all that far, and both of them did go for Cull. So going for just maximum item snowball potential here for this top side. And a lot of it's going to come down to this next fight, which will happen around this Inferno Dragon in 2 minutes. Teleports should be held on to by both of our top laners until that happens. And DCG making their way over for this Rift Herald, maybe use that to get mid lane priority once Dragon spawns. But for BYG, I don't think they're, you know, looking to try and flip at this moment. They want to play around this mid lane, or of course, again, that third dragon, which they already have the first 2.
I mean, they've already set up vision as well, so it feels very relevant to talk a little bit about BYG's further setup here, where bottom side has been, you know, rather successful. The dives have come through, and Chris Carter was forced to flash away and cleanse in the last play. That flash still on cooldown too. And worth mentioning, when we did talk a lot about him being a core carry for the DCG draft. So for BYG, the setup already looking pretty good. And further to the point you were saying before, for DCG, they were able to get the Herald. There was no response from BYG getting the mid lane turret, but a Herald might be placed here alongside the Dragon play to see if DCG can get that dream fight that you keep referencing here.
Right now, Nesty up in his top side. Okay. Trying to bait something out.
Going to be knocked back. Remember that Leaky has the ultimate available, but under turret still. Lakai not going to be taken down so easy. So now 2 members spotted in the top side. And look over the vision that Beyond Gaming have set up defensively with 40 seconds left to go. I mean, BYG for the rest of the map can start taking some numbers. And we were just talking about the Dragon setup.
Yeah, they now have real firm control over this bot half of the map, right? They have members spread out. And Hana trying to aggressively push his way through, but this is going to be difficult. They throw down a Rift Herald again, get mid lane priority, maybe crack that tower, pull attention away from this Dragon Pit. But for the side of BYG, they're perfectly happy with just conceding that tower. They know, like, if they get this Dragon, it just puts so much pressure onto DCG.
As Kai goes in for the wing, this is the catch on Nesty who goes golden. The tidal wave already used. TP, Aqua Prison, perfectly timed, but now Husha is on the wrong side of the wall, has to Heartbreaker out. Good zoning tools as Wako is one left stranded. DCG now move their way in forcefully. Yeah, a lot of ults burned here, but at least Leaky still has it.
Yeah, and the wall isn't there to cut off the side of BYG from accessing this Dragon. It's used to try and find the fight, and now things really reset here.
Watch Leaky on the top side. Meanwhile, also note that Wako has no culling. Kino with no ult as well at 2.7 to keep his verdict still up and available. Active Prison great. The steal comes through. No, it's Hana who secures it here, but for BYG still wanting to take the fight while Leaky takes Husha into the death prison. But will the death be coming through? Who's just standing still? And
Big
he
shutdown.
drops. Another big shutdown coming through, as you say, with a double kill going over to Lakai, but Beyond Gaming still on the edge of pushing forward. Wako with flash available, wants to kill Hunter as Lakai flashes in, but denied. Steadfast presence is good enough, but Wako still forward, but Yumi doing a lot. The cleanse there,
Oh, no.
the flash again, Wako can't get it. The range at perfect
Nesty
angle as Nesty flashes over the wall.
Might be a
Keenan doesn't
mistake.
want to walk back in, as Lakai gets knocked on back with the seismic shove. And DCG take the scraps, take the dragon, and bring blood into the bottom side river.
Oh, and it just all falls apart for BYG. Leaky being a crucial part of that, stealing away the Viego from the fight, removing him from this prevents him from getting those resets. It's also their strongest member. Remember, he just got so many kills during the lane phase, and then he takes all those stats. All those stats are onto Mordekaiser. He also removes the Lissandra. That's a key factor to their team fight potential, right? Because you get those resets or the passive procs coming in from the Lissandra to really snowball a fight, and unfortunately Wako just unable to gap close enough and burst out Cascada. That's really just, that was a lot of their fight. Try and make sure you burst out Cascada, and then you should be able to take it, but they overreached their bounds, and now things are not looking great for BYG.
I think Yumi's got to be a pain in BYG's neck after watching that fight back. Again, on the Zeri, it's just been such a big duo. I can't wait for the Nyla-Yumi duo. It looks pretty OP. It looks pretty silly, as does that champion in general, as we go to 12.13 next. But hey, for DCG, further to the point, I mean, that was a brilliant fight. Lots of edges taken, and, you know, Leaky comes out the back with a couple more kills as well. I've been focusing on this player this game, Nightstar, because his ultimates have been amazing, as we saw on the jungle. Husha in the last one, he's now 2 items here with the Death Dance too, and DCG's top laner is 50 CS up his counterpart. Like, he is so strong, and actually one of the few in the game who has 2 items apart from Wako.
Yeah, he's just so far ahead. And on the flip side, Leakai, he is struggling to try and get himself that second item. Does at least have the Sunderer, so a little bit of sustain and punch here for these fights, but certainly not the durability that he would get from the second item. And for BYG, they should be just trying to fish for a pick, because when you look at the drawbacks of this composition, they don't have a lot of range to deal with Cascada. So if Cascada doesn't get one tapped and just popped at the start of the fight, they don't have any reach to get to him, and it's about then hoping that, hey, if we build magic resistance, we get ourselves our Merc Treads, and then on top of that, we get ourselves our Hex Drinker. Can we just kind of brute force our way through the magic damage from DCG? Is that possible? Only one way really to find out.
Good little burst here from Nesty though, and in with the MR boots, it ain't going to be enough from this mid, or rather from Husha, to survive getting chunked out massively. At half HP, it's minute 15 till Dragon comes up, and Baron's up too. But for BYG, it's obvious that this game has turned a little bit awry for them, considering we were complimenting the vision. We were talking about how much control they had around the bottom side. DCG have been lensing out quite consistently. You can see the control ward commitment on the left-hand side of the bottom of your screen. And right now, I mean, DCG in a prime position to set themselves up for the second Dragon of the game and deny BYG that early soul that we felt was coming.
Yeah, that was their big win condition to try and just end the game outright. But now, Wako
going over, not matched out. At least it brings out the final chapter from Woody. They didn't call the bluff there. They thought Wako had backup, and with Mitchie's Glacial Path, it seems to be that Hunter's ult on a short cooldown and Woody's not up at all.
Yeah, now it's going to be jostling for position. And again, really important that BYG are able to get access to the river area first, but DCG able to force their way through mid lane to try and just play around mid lane priority. Oh, here comes the wall.
Oh, Yes, messy though. They're split off. Husha takes on Nesty here, who cleanses. Kino sends up the ulti. Wako goes flying, but DCG have taken so much in the process as well. Nesty's wall being down, his flash now coming up with the Unsealed Spellbook, but looking a little bit sketchier than last time as Dragon begins. Now look on the back end.
Great angle.
Lakai as well, I have to say, Beyond Gaming playing this comp now, ready to capitalize in, but it's about the sandwich here as Dragon is stolen by DCG, but Lakai setting up but doesn't go full commit. Minji's in the middle, but he's in the death realm, while Lakai finally ultis out, but Husha late as well. Beyond Gaming, this team fight is so scattered as Wako is left standing with Lakai on the other side. I mean, the seismic shove, great. Nesty flashing over. The chase will continue as Wako just wants to get on home turf, but with Nesty knowing Lakai is there, the flash will only just save him. Beyond Gaming, that fight was so messy.
Man, BYG, they looked for the angle, and the angle was just kill Cascada, right? That was the play. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do so. Leaky playing a critical role in that. When Minji jumps in, he immediately uses the ultimate onto the Lissandra and prevents the Lissandra from ulting Cascada. We can see the jump in. Oh, actually, the ultimate does land on Cascada, but because of the cleanse, able to stay safe, and they just run out of damage of sorts at this point in time because they don't have the range. If they get in range to auto attack, they're all in range of this Mordekaiser, and this Mordekaiser is just ginormous. He's just an absolute titan in this game.
Leaky's having a great showing. Remember we talked about Leaky's weakness being the laning phase? I feel like this was a great laning phase, Nightstar, and the team fight presence is there as always. 60 CS up now on Lakai. Third item there with the Zhonya's Hourglass. You can see it's not the Nashes. It's not the attack speed built in. It is all about team fighting in the build here for Leaky this game.
Yeah, it's about being as durable as possible. If he picks out one of these... Oh god, Minji, he is...
Minji flashes
gonzo
into a seismic shove, of course. Wasn't the flash, it was the ease. He comes back out, bursted out. Double Zhonya's with the ult included in that list, and Minji will still die here thanks to Nesty. But getting caught out with a beautiful lens from the jungle is now DCG continuing.
No damage.
To run towards Baron, you're right. That was Wako sitting out the culling, and once again, Lucianami disappointing me here, Nightstar, as Baron begins, and BYG are down a member.
They're down a member, but they need to find a way to try and flip this in favor. Husha could go over the pit.
Husha still, no, he comes close. Leaky didn't even ult it in the end. As onto Lakai, you can see Wako now in the death realm, and he gets smashed hard by a Q. This Lucian is double shotted for a double kill. Nesty runs after the rest, and Beyond Gaming right now are looking weak here in the face of DCG's team fighting, which has been on point.
DCG really playing to their comp, to its power, outranging the side of BYG, and it looked so good at the start for Beyond Gaming, and since then it has just really fizzled out. Don't have the range to get access to Cascada, especially when he has Cleanse and the Yuumi sitting on top of him, and it's gonna come down to a bit of a hope and a prayer. Catch out Cascada, overextended, maybe that
like this
will play a part. Weak eye. This is a very hopeful play.
Yeah, I mean, catching them off.
He's going. He's going. He is going.
Lakai's going to go golden, but look, Husha doesn't want to get anywhere near this. Minji won't as well. Ambitious, to say the least, from BYG, as now with a 9k gold lead. Keto getting hit with the Ultra Shock Laser. This is going to be base-breaking, quite literally, with the Baron play from DCG.
Level 16 reached by the Mordekaiser as well. He is just so much stats right now. And you look on the flip side, level 12 on Husha. Character with so much of their gold because of how much kills got funneled into him. Way too far behind in the level department, man. He's just missing way too many stats. Minji, this is maybe the last gasp here.
Yeah, I mean, does it matter that they're hitting Leaky? No. There's a Yuumi on the team, and Tidal Wave as it comes through again as Minji wants the engage, but DCG, they're so strong, he doesn't want to commit to it. And Beyond Gaming now with their top side broken, the base broken, in tatters are BYG after this early game, and it's all gone wrong every single fight. You can see, you know, we talked about the ins and outs of execution here for BYG. It's been a hard comp to execute, but I mean, it's just the communication that feels like this game has run away from them.
Yeah, they are getting really, really desperate, and at the very least, they're going for these big Hail Mary plays. Unfortunately, not thought out well enough, and now there's going to be a sweet spot. Talia wall available here for Nesty. Just really separate this fight very, very easily.
Okay, Minji, it's all up to you. While Nesty, you said with the Weaver's Wall, he's done it already. Look, I can get over that, but with the ulti coming through from
Oh
Husha,
my god!
just like
laser.
that, I mean, Hana rather, yeah, the shock laser doing that, excuse me, as Kilo just said. That ult was very quick, while Beyond Gaming now getting to a fighting angle, but the AoE is huge. Chris Carter's still alive. It doesn't matter. BYG will always set up the fail at this point, as Nesty hasn't missed a seismic shove. BYG try as they might, they get the AoE, but it looks like it's way too late. There's Lakai now against the wall, and DCG looking for the final kill as the base gets overrun.
Yeah, just trying to waste Lee Kai's time here as they throw in the teleports to the base. They'll clean that up. Lee Kai will channel the teleport, but it's gonna get back to his house with not a lot left in the house.
Well, DCG, props to them. I mean, the draft looks a little different than what we normally see, and they make it work. I think the more important takeaway from this is that DCG so much better coordinated in these skirmishes and these fights, and the decision making was just on point.
Yeah, we saw once DCG, they move out of the lane phase, that's where this squad really shines, making these macro calls or setting up around these objectives. And we saw in that game, BYG, Beyond Gaming, they had access to the Dragon area time and time again first. They were there in the river. They had the ward control. But yet, time and time again, they just didn't know how to play around the Talia wall, and they just got bodied at these objective fights over and over again. And that's really where the critical turning point was. It was at that third Dragon.
Yeah, it was. We'll get another look at it, I'm sure. But DCG moving up to 6 now, joining J-Team in the top 3 here alongside PSG. Well-deserved, considering this team, we said, looked a little bit shaky against Sem9 yesterday, and we're kind of concerned in the left field from the draft.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely some concerns here. Fortunately for them, BYG, they didn't have any sort of like super tank, right? They didn't have a hyperscaling tank that could just itemize magic resistance to really eat all the brunt of the damage coming in from DCG. So they didn't have to worry about that. And the key point was the jungle matchup. It was the Poppy up against the Viego, and Viego just not one of those junglers that can actively back up a bot lane duo of Lucian Nami. You have to set up vertical jungling to support that lane if you're going to play Lucian Nami, and they didn't do it. And as a result, the Zeri Yuumi gets to scale for free. And then they ran away with the game.
Everything got to scale for him. I mean, the Mordekaiser was well ahead. The gank up in the top side coming through from Husha in the early game was great. I mean, Husha, remember, he started the game 4-0.
Yes.
Like, this Viego was primed, and it's kind of a shame to see, because then we get into the mid game, and again, the skirmishes, the fights, like every single time, it just seemed to keep going DCG's way. As you said, Nightstar, the third Dragon was the big one, as DCG came out reeling out of the back of that. I would say that, you know, like, we're not getting the same crazy drafts from DCG once again, but we are getting these individual picks that seem to be, you know, holistically working towards the DCG game plan.
Yeah, and DCG, they conceptually understand some of their win conditions, right? Or at least they recognize the win conditions coming in from the other team. They see the Camille, Lissandra, really that sort of combination really written all over the cards. And then they recognize, hey, they just want to kill Cruscata. Let's pick some things to really counter that. And the key point was this Mordekaiser who has a pretty good matchup into the Camille, and then also just gets to deny so much of the pick power. And he gets MVP here. Well deserved, dealing the most damage on his team, almost 40%.
Oh, as a top lane, I mean, that's always huge. Like, and the funny thing is, when we get, you know, Leaky on this roster, we get the most damage. And let's be real, you know, we've seen Leaky all split, of course. But Leaky at the moment, to my point, that is a bit jumbled, I'll get there eventually, has now picked out Mordekaiser twice and is 2-0 on the champion. Yes. I believe he died once. That was the first time he died in those 2 games as well, by the way. Is now repping the most damage in his team. It does feel like for BYG, we are getting, DCG, excuse me, we are getting a very top-side focus here. A very, I guess, individualistic player in Leaky, set up for success with the picks that come from Nesty, that come from Hunter as well.
Yeah, and for DCG, they're starting to find their identity. And Cruscata, I mean, they tried to play a little bit around him last split when he went for more of those Aphelios picks, but I think this identity right now for them is a lot different from the other squads in the PCS, and that also kind of gives them a different look when it comes to prepping for them later on in the playoffs. Well, I hope that we see that different look come through, because coming up next, CFO versus J-Team. I mean, this goes even higher. J-Team, we're going to see if Kongyue still remains in form, or if we just get Gemini pumping as usual. You won't want to go anywhere for this, so you're going to stick around after the break.